Hi, everybody. My name is Pax, and I'm an alcoholic. Firstly, I want to thank Glenn for asking for me to be of service and come across the pond and share with you guys today. My sobriety date is the 4th of May, 2016. And I'm a very blessed alcoholic, very blessed to be alive. I was going to start with how my week's been. And last week, I was all over the place. Not in mentally, I was physically all over the place. I had the flu, a very, very bad flu. I've still got parts of the after effects of it still going on. It's not COVID, but it was really bad, and I found myself in that place where when I'm stuck at home and the mind is all over the place. And what I would usually do would be to pick up a drink to numb everything out. And actually I didn't. I actually went through the processes. I was able to kind of clear-mindedly think of what I need to do to look after myself. I can understand where certain parts of pain are arising, and I can treat it. I didn't have to go to a bottle, right? Where before coming into recovery, every aspect of life, I needed to go to the bottle. It became emotionally challenging. I needed a bottle just to calm myself down, to kind of realign, and in that belief that that it was actually working for me. In the belief that, actually it was a delusional belief. That with drink, it will solve all my problems. Now, going from that, actually, because I've just shared about delusions, and it's very important. I landed myself into a treatment center back in 2007. And I've come to in this treatment center in the belief there's absolutely nothing wrong with me. And the people who have put me into this treatment center are mad. And I was in a delusional state of mind. To get to that place where I was in such a delusional state of mind, over the years of my drinking progressed, and it continued to progress. See, I was a child, as I was growing up as a kid, I always felt that there was something missing within myself. I always had the need to be continuously reassuring myself that I'm okay. I needed others to be able to be liking me. And I had the illness of part of alcoholism well before I picked up a drink. I just didn't understand it. And I only became an alcoholic once I was drinking. But I can go back through, certain characteristics from a child, going back to 5 or 6 years old, and that constant need that I needed others, for me to feel that I'm okay. The constant drive to change the way I felt internally. And, you know, for me, it was, from a young age, it was actually, you know, just to try and have, you know, groups of people to be my friends. And what lengths would I go to for them to be my friends? You know, I started dishonesty at a very young age. My dishonesty started, you know, because I wanted these other kids to like me, for me to feel a part. Well, I needed to buy sweets for everyone, you know. So I was a child. I didn't have any money, you know, and so I used to go to the local temple, you know. We used to put 2 pence in and take 10 pence out. And I just found a great way of getting extra money, um, from a temple, and then take the kids off to go and buy sweets. You know, getting in trouble, and you know, I relate this to my alcoholism actually. Getting into trouble, knowing it's wrong, but going back and doing it again. And I did, you know, and you know, so those characteristics of actually just me doing things over and over again, knowing it was completely wrong and it's harming me and it's not right, started from a very young age. But as I was growing up, and introduced to alcohol, you know, I was a child, I was a guy with, you know, so insecure, and I relate that to actually having self-centered fear within. So the moment I picked up the first drink, just like in the promises I read out, you know, I was amazed before I was halfway through the first drink. It was doing for me what I was not able to do for myself. It actually dampened the self-centered fear within. And once it did that, it was like I was free. You know, before the drink, I was completely self-obsessed. See, I always wanted, you know, what I had to be dressed well, or, you know, people are going to watch me. You know, have I got the right shoes on, or, you know, going in any event. And in that place where I'm constantly, you know, is people are going to notice what I've got on. And, you know, completely in that place of self-obsession. But put a drink in me. And the moment I took that first drink, I started to do something that I wasn't able to do for myself. It dampened that fear. As it dampened that fear, it felt, uh, it felt like freedom. You know, as I said, I was so self-obsessed and worried about what other people thought of me. But put a drink inside me, I didn't care what anybody thought of me. I'll be rolling around on the dance floor, and you know, no care in the world. So alcohol from the off go was doing something for me from, you know, and it changed the way I felt. It became a solution without me even realizing it. So it was doing all the promises for me throughout my whole drinking career. You know, it made me behave and act in a way where I felt superior to others. You know, in some mad way, I was God, because I found a magic potion that's going to deal with everything. And it, you know, it was dealing with all the insecurities that I had. But with alcoholism, you know, from my own experience, has been a very progressive journey. You know, and the progression of the consequences started rolling in. And as the consequences started rolling in, I've created this magical tool, and that was rationalization, justification. You know, there's a line in the big book at the back of the stories, which I love. Rationalization is giving a socially acceptable reason for socially unacceptable behavior. And socially unacceptable behavior is a form of insanity. I'm going through life rationalizing my actions and my behaviors, justifying that alcohol is not the problem. all I was really doing was self-deception, just lying to myself, convincing myself that the problem's not me. The blame game used to go out. I used to always constantly point fingers. As I say, as I was pointing fingers, there's three fingers pointing straight back at me. Because when I've come into the journey of recovery, I was in that delusional state of mind where I was a nice guy. I don't do anything wrong. But through my drinking career, I've cheated on partners because of drink related, just intoxicated, no care in the world, and then rationalize it and justify that, well, I did it abroad, so that's technically not cheating. Drink driving. Now my tolerance is higher. Those rules don't apply to me, so my ego's flying in. And rationalizing it, well, that rule is for the people who can't handle their drinks. I can handle my drinks, so that doesn't apply to me. But again, constantly in that place where I start with certain principles and morals, but rationalizing it, justifying it, all was happening in my journey of the destruction was the unacceptable becoming acceptable. And me falling into a place of new realities. So I hanged around in places where, the drinking culture was, it was normal to be just constantly drinking in every aspect. It's because I placed myself there. I also need you to justify and rationalize that this is what normal people do. So, I'm placing myself in that environment to kind of say, well, everyone else is doing it. But the reality was the complete opposite. I can go on for, ages on, the destruction of alcoholism. But the reality was that, along this, my ego was growing constantly. And I was blinded to the whole lot. As I said, normalizing everything that was really going on. So I found myself in, thrown into this treatment center in 2007. And that was by one of my ex-girlfriends and family members. Now, I've come to, and I'm in this delusional state of mind. And I'm saying, there's nothing wrong with me. You're all mad. You need to be in here. I'll refer going back into the big book for this, because, I create a lot of harm and damage to the people around me. And the way to describe it is perfectly written in the big book. Is alcoholic is like a tornado roaring through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, relationships are uprooted. The home was in turmoil. And then, the later part of that is where, a story where the farmer comes out and he says, I don't see nothing wrong here, Ma. And, I can relate because I've come into this delusional state of mind and I'm saying there's absolutely nothing wrong with me because I've created this belief within myself that this is just normal. So my alcoholic life became, normal. And I couldn't differentiate between the truth and the false. So I've come in that treatment center and, my ego was off the charts. My arrogance was off the charts. I'm bigger and special than everybody else. I look back and it's absolutely insanity. But in that place where I was, but I've come to, I really believed, if you could put a lie detector test on me, I really believed that what I was saying was absolutely 100% right. And today I can look back at that and I'll say, that's absolute insanity. But, you know, I was guided into Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, once I went into that treatment center. And once I went into that treatment center, I come from a very successful background in business. So on a materialistic level, I had pretty much a lot of things still back in my life. But I was guided to Alcoholics Anonymous by my ego, my arrogance, and the belief and the delusional belief that I had was that I don't need this. I'll be able to deal with this and just apply the actual skills that I've created a business with, you know, into recovery. And came out of a treatment center, and within 24 hours, I picked up a drink. I didn't have any clue or idea why I picked up a drink, which would set me on a journey into try and figure out and how to, you know, cure why I couldn't stop drinking. And believe me, I've been to some extreme lengths to figure out alcoholism. You know, and I'll just strip through them. You know, within 2 years, 8 admissions into treatment, trying to figure out alcoholism. But remembering that I was guided to Alcoholics Anonymous from the very start. And, you know, my belief in, you know, my mental capacity, I know and I've got this. So I started with everything materialistic is great around me. I've seen brain surgeons. I've seen ENT doctors, you know, trying to, you know, for me, my idea was I got told there's the illness centers in the mind. So my mind creates this idea that I need a brain surgeon to sort it out. You know, and, you know, I did go to a brain surgeon and they said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your brain. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not a brain surgeon. I'm stripping this doctor apart and saying, you have no idea what you know, you should, you know, you're ripping people off, you know, and I'm trying to be a brain surgeon. Just like he says, I love it. It's like I was the actor trying to run the whole show, basically. But, you know, along this stuff that I'm going to, you know, my alcoholism was continuing to progress. You know, I was in a place where I'm not like, you know, my understanding of what an alcoholic was, you know, people on a park bench. See, because I rationalize and justify things, I couldn't even see that, you know, actually many times I used to sit on a park bench drinking. There's absolutely no difference between a homeless man sitting on a park bench and me sitting on a park bench. We're doing the same action. We're doing the same thing. So progressing, you know, by the end of those two years of treatment, I was left with no business, no family, no girlfriend, no nothing. It was just me drinking around the clock, numbing everything out, you know, waking up with the shame and the guilt, and then having to reach for the bottle because I'm restless, irritable, and I'm overloaded, and I need the drink to just numb everything out again. I had no understanding at that point where, you know, the first drink did the damage, you know, and setting off the allergy. But then, you know, I had, you know, there was a moment of clarity that came through, you know, and that was back in 2010 where my hands went up and I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You know, it was the moment where, you know, I've exhausted all avenues of trying to figure out alcoholism. You know, in one way, there was another area where, you know, letting go of alcohol, which for me was the solution, but also my best friend. It was like I was going for a torturous relationship, and I actually had to go through the 5 stages of grieving just to let it go and say, this is not for me. You know, the 5 stages were denial, you know, angry, I was an alcoholic, bargaining. Am I really an alcoholic? I can't be because I'm not that. You know, going through depression and then coming to acceptance. But back in 2010, I was broken, and then pretty much everything stripped away, and I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I was really guided to from the very start. And the hand of AA was there, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I was a lost man. I had nothing to do. I was broken, and people welcomed me into the meet and showed me kindness. And I was so broken at that point, I was teachable. And I started taking on the suggestions. And, I was guided to pick up get a sponsor, get to meetings. I did all that. I did what I was, what was suggested to me. I went through the steps. Slowly by slowly, my life started to rebuild. And I would say it started to transform. What I was not able to do, I was one day at a time, I was not picking up a drink. I went through the program, the obsession lifted. But there was still a level of, within myself, at some level, there was me still trying to intellectualize this program. And over a period of time, I started to rationalize and me being in recovery and me working a program. I'm saying this is because after 4.5 years in Alcoholics Anonymous and in sobriety, I actually picked up a drink and went back out. I picked up a drink simply because I failed to enlarge in my spiritual life, nothing else. It describes it in the big book, for if an alcoholic failed to enlarge in his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, shall not be able to handle certain trials and low spots ahead. I had a trial in my sobriety, and that trial was emotionally damaging, and I went to this place within myself, not armed with the support of recovery, because I've been drifting away from recovery. I found myself in the bitter morass of self-pity, as is described, and the quicksand stretched around me. I was getting sucked into something that I actually had no idea how to get myself out of it. And ultimately, I picked up a drink. And, to me, alcohol was always there as a solution. I wanted to numb what was going on internally with me, in the emotions, and my head was racing 100 miles an hour. And I picked up a drink. And I found myself within 3 months, roaming around in the streets of London with no care in the world, personal hygiene out the window. I was homeless on the streets. And, alcoholism was a great remover, and it'll strip me from everything. And it just did that. I've managed to get frostbite and for the consequences of the frostbite, I've had both legs amputated. That was the destruction of alcoholism, but it was also, the buildup of actually not working the program and just drifting away. And I was saying I was rationalizing that I was in the program. Well, there was somebody took me through the work. I was still selfish and self-centered, and actually didn't sponsor anybody else and carry the message. I was convincing myself, coming to meetings and saying, coming in late, leaving very quickly at the end, and saying, well, I'm doing my 2 meetings a week, so it's okay. I'm still in that place where, I'm still looking for external gratification. In recovery, when I said I transformed my life, my life was transformed. It's because I was able to rebuild bridges with family. I was able to rebuild a business in recovery. My life was on the external was glamorized. But as it says in the big book, I became a victim of the delusion that I can wrest satisfaction and happiness out as well if I only manage well. The external things became more important than the recovery. And ultimately, the price was that I was going to go and pick up a trick, and I did. So having thrown myself back into recovery, and it was not easy. I bounced around after the amputations, constantly going in that place where, if you had my life, then you drink too. But, ultimately I knew deep down that I couldn't do this anymore. And I'm very, very grateful. I'm very, very blessed that, the people in recovery, people in Alcoholics Anonymous, over the years that I came into recovery, I built new relationships with people. And those relationships were real. Not like where I was in the alcoholic world. Everyone was acquaintances. To come into recovery and really rebuild relationships with people from an honest level. One by one, all of those people used to turn up to my hospital bed and gave me a glimmer of hope and say things will be okay. But I had to hold on to that hope. People used to come and pick me up and take me to meetings. All those things, it still gets me because all those things, little things that members were doing, contributes to my recovery. And I'm very, very grateful for all of that. And I'm very grateful for everybody who's on this meeting because you're all helping me stay sober one day at a time. As I said, my life was turned upside down. But one thing for sure, I needed to immerse myself back into this program and really get right in the middle. It says that the illness is cunning, baffling, and powerful. It also says that half measures avail as nothing. If I had to throw myself in and actually, go to any lengths to put recovery number one. And I have done. As I said, once I worked on my recovery and I was able to put the drink down one day at a time, going through the whole process of going through the steps again and actually coming out the other side with just having a spiritual awakening. And just completely placing myself in a place where I'm having a constant thought of others is where it is. It's where I actually do my work, is how am I able to help somebody else? What the destruction of the madness has taught me, and even to the point where I had both legs amputated, was pacts on self-will. It doesn't work. Pacts trying to run the whole show just doesn't work. So when I've come back into this recovery, I knew that step one wasn't the place I needed to be. First, I went into step two, and I knew it was there. And the line that throws out is, we alcoholics crushed by self-imposed crisis. And then we had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God was everything or God was nothing. Either he is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? And I knew what my choice was. I knew, packs running on self-would run riot got me into that mess at that point. Is packs still trying to run the whole show? And to me, I look at that line as either I'm in recovery or I'm not in recovery. Either I'm working a program or I'm not working a program. It's pretty black and white. You know, I always say that, you know, I'm very, very blessed that, you know, that actually I had the amputations. And I am blessed. You know, I was 100 miles an hour still before. This is just, you know, the way I like to look at it is God's funny way of showing me, taking a couple of legs off, placing me on a wheelchair where I couldn't run, and actually start looking inwards. You know, it's been a journey, you know, of going internally and actually, you know, completely handing my will and my life over to the care of God. You know, fear used to drive me in a place where uh, I still needed to be in control. I still needed to do, you know, my way. But I've just had to follow the, you know, just follow with faith, you know, and even up until now, it hasn't failed me. I love this line in the big book, which I've, you know, it really pops out for me, you know, and for me, it's so true. You know, I came into recovery with a with an egotistical mind, constantly in the intellectual world, and constantly relying on my head. And now, coming into recovery, learning a new language, and the language of the heart, intuition. Today's conflicts that I have is between my head and my heart. God, you know, God's within me. He's telling me go one direction, and Pax's ego wants to go another direction. So I understand the difference between, but I've only understood this once I've come into Alcoholics Anonymous. I put the drink down, and I'm able to kind of find out who I am. Before recovery, I'll be whoever you wanted me to be. I had no idea who I was, you know. Coming into Alcoholics Anonymous, also finding that I've been handed a purpose. I didn't even have to look for a purpose in life. I've been handed one. You know, my purpose is to carry the message to the still suffering alcoholic. You know, I said, you know, my life has been transformed again. It's pretty full on. But it's pretty full on with my recovering being number one. You know, wherever someone's struggling and you know, wherever someone needs help, you know, I'm always going to be there to, you know, try and do the best I can. Actually, just before this meeting, I was trying to do a 12-step call, and you know, sadly, I wasn't able to kind of bring the gentleman across to the meeting. Actually, where I'm sharing from is in my home group. Where as soon as after I finish this, I'll be doing the secretaryship in my home group in the next room. But sadly, we weren't able to kind of get him over. He was too intoxicated. But it's, you know, to me, I know that I start working on nurturing the soul and doing what I need to do on God's plan for me, and everything else is okay. I've been gifted the biggest gift that one could ever imagine. You know, I'm always that person who was constantly seeking for external stuff to get approval, constantly in that place of trying to change the way I feel. Actually going in through the process of recovery and growing and breaking down the delusions that I have. Growing the relationship with my higher power. You know, growing in listening to other people sharing and actually taking on board, you know, where my ears are open and my mouth is shut. That I've been given a priceless gift. That gift is having peace from within. Being content with who I am today, not who I want to be, not what I should have been, but with who I am today. I've never had that. I continue to grow, on a spiritual aspect of it, and I'm driven towards that way. But one thing is for sure, as it was described in the big book, that as I continue to grow the relationship with my higher power, which I do, that I would have the elements of living that would answer all my problems. And that's exactly what Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps have done for me. I'm able to handle all my problems today. I'm very, very grateful for that. And I just don't need to run back to a bottle. But also I've got to be very, very careful, that that I don't get too, I wouldn't say complacent. To me, it's the rationalization aspect of things coming in, because my mind still tries to drive things. It's to rationalize things in a way where, it's very subtle that you drift off recovery. But I'm grateful that I've actually got a clear mind and an open mind at the moment where, I pick that kind of stuff up regularly by doing my step 10 and 11s and doing work in a program, really. So yeah, I'm coming to a bit of a dry up, so I'm gonna start winding down. If you were an alcoholic, if you didn't put any newcomers, if you're an alcoholic like I was, that didn't know how to follow instructions, I'll give you an example for that. I can walk into IKEA, pick up a flat pack. It comes with a set of instructions. And my ego will step in and says, I don't need that. I'll start building it. And I'll probably be left with about 4 or 5 screws. And then my tool of rationalization will come and say, these guys didn't need, they're just wasting money putting 4 screws in. If they employed me, they would save a lot of money. It makes me chuckle because I didn't know how to follow instructions. The instructions were given to me. Clear-cut directions were given to me. I just simply didn't know how to follow. And if you're in a place where, when I came into recovery, I was riddled with fear from within. And I didn't know what to do next. Well, imagine yourself at a ravine. You must get to the other side of that ravine. And there's a wooden bridge that's crossing over. You're full of fear because some of the timber slats are broken. And you don't know if you step on one, you'll fall into the ravine and kill yourself. But then somebody comes from behind and actually takes all the steps necessary to get to the other side. And then shouts back at you and says, take the steps I've taken. You have a choice to follow the person ahead and follow the steps that the person took and go with faith and get to the other side, or choose your own. Well, that's exactly what Alcoholics Anonymous is about. People have already got to the other side. They're on the other side waiting to guide you one step at a time for you to join them on the other side. I'll leave you there. God bless.